Can you imagine living in a country where you're not allowed to choose your own car's color? Or where you might be shaved because you have long hair or a beard? This is the dark side of Turkmenistan. Located in Central Asia, Turkmenistan is a landlocked country where you can find vast arid deserts inhospitable to plant and animal life. But that's not all you can find, because the country is filled with dark facts you won't find elsewhere. Imagine not being allowed to pick your own car's color. That's what's happening in Turkmenistan right now. According to news reports, it's illegal to drive a black car in the capital, Ashgabat, as the president prefers the color white. The ban also applies to other non-white colors, but right now the focus is on black, since it's the total opposite of white. The president believes that the white is considered lucky, and he had a vision where the city is adorned with all white vehicles. Failure to comply will result in getting your car impounded. Even the prices to repaint cars became inflated from so many demands. The lack of clear communication and the challenges to change their car have left the citizens of Ashgabat frustrated with the government's decision. The current president may not be a fan of black cars, but the previous president had an even more unique regulation. President Niyazov banned lip singing at public events and even playing recorded music on television. He said it has a negative effect on the development of singing and musical art. According to Niyazov, the sight of singers lip singing their songs diminishes talents and stunts the creation of new culture. The ban is even enacted in weddings and gatherings. Watch out, Ashley Simpson. And that's not the only thing that's banned. He also banned other cultural activities that he doesn't consider to match the values of Turkmenistan, such as ballet and opera. It seems that women are not the only ones who are being regulated in terms of their grooming rituals. Former President Niyazov also imposed restrictions on men's hair length and facial hair in Turkmenistan. The police even go on regular strolls along the streets to find men with beards and long hair and reprimand them. They'll be ordered to shave it or have it shaved for them. In one case, a Turkmen was denied his flight in the airport because he had a beard. Authorities said he needed to shave his beard first to be identified and match his passport photo, or else they wouldn't allow him to fly. In coastal cities, police even find young men who don't comply with grooming regulation and detain them in the police station. According to the government, the rule was enacted because long hair and bushy beards are perceived as a sign of radical beliefs, which could create panic among the public. Even preachers in mosques have resorted to advising their congregation to refrain from growing a beard unless they're of retired age. That way, they'll avoid getting prosecuted by the police. In a bid to keep their capital city beautiful and fragrant, the president also imposed strict regulations on pet ownership. According to the regulation, people are only allowed to keep one cat or dog or decorative bear. All livestock will be banned from the city and be taken to a rural area far away from the city centers. Some residents have resorted to eating their livestock pets, such as chickens and camels, in order to not have them shipped elsewhere. Others were hoping that they could find a way around the regulation to no avail, because the police were already enthusiastically raiding the city and its surrounding areas. The reason behind the regulation is because the president doesn't want the smell or sight of pets to overpower his favorite flower, dahlia. Dahlias are planted all over the city's well-maintained avenues, creating a beautiful fragrance that signifies the nation's stability. Turkmenistan is a country that controls almost everything their citizens do, so it's no surprise that they also control how people conduct their weddings. For example, weddings are not allowed to use Western music and must only use Turkmen-style things. Even more shocking, Turkmen are also instructed to play songs made by the country's ex-president during their wedding as a sign of respect. All vendors, owners of wedding venues, restaurants, and banquet halls have been informed of the new rules and must obey requirements. Many of their people are against this rule because Turkmenistan is a multi-ethnic country. They felt frustrated that they're not allowed to have their own choices of music according to their ancestral culture. Another rule about weddings that couples must follow is that they must plant a tree and visit important monuments on their wedding day. Some of the destinations are the Earthquake Memorial, the Monument to the Constitution, the Monument to Independence, and the Second World War Memorial. The couples are also ordered to plant trees when they register their marriage at a nearby park and care for them. They're also advised to visit the tree during important celebrations such as anniversaries, birthdays, and others. Turkmenistan might impose a lot of regulations on their people, but there's something that they cherish: the sacred breed of horse called the Akhal Teke. According to the legend, these horses are descendants of the Akhal Tekens, heavenly horses that are fast like the wind. The state emblem is also an Akhal Teken racer, signifying their importance in Turkmenistan culture. The horses are a rare breed with graceful, chiseled swan-like necks and slim legs. They're one of the fastest and strongest breeds in the world. They post a great spiritual value to Turkmen people and are considered as an attribute of well-being and prosperity. The government even created special regulations when it comes to Akhal Teke. People are banned from changing the name of these horses during their lifetime and must give them a proper burial when they die. According to the law, the horses must be buried in an area designated by local authorities and in the presence of an official who will register the death. This has created frustration within the rural breeders who live far away from government offices because they had to wait until one became available to act as a witness during a burial. If you're a woman in Turkmenistan, then you won't have much freedom in expressing yourself. That's because women in Turkmenistan are being policed for the way they groom. Women all around the world are used to pampering themselves by doing their nails or going to a hair salon. But that's out of the question in Turkmenistan. They're not allowed to get beauty treatments such as eyelash extensions, injections, lip augmentation, hair dyeing, gel manicures, eyebrowing, microblading, and all types of beauty injections. Plastic surgery on any part of their bodies is also banned entirely. To make sure this rule is being followed everywhere in the country, the authorities employed morality agents and police to conduct raids in public places and offices. Anyone who fails to follow the rules will be fined US $140 and forced to do away with their beauty accessories. Even beauty parlor owners are being fined US $285 and jailed for 15 days if they offer any of the banned procedures to clients. But with so many of the treatments being banned, one has to wonder what kind of services a beauty salon can even offer to women in Turkmenistan. Another thing that women in Turkmenistan struggle with is obtaining their own driver's license. Before the 2000s, women were banned from getting their driver's license at all. The government has opened access for women to be able to drive, but it's very restricted. Currently, there are only 10,000 women in Turkmenistan who have a driver's license. Just when things were getting better, the government decided to cease license renewal and registration for women in 2018. That's because more women were driving on the road without any licenses. So the government decided to temporarily suspend women's driving privileges. About 30 people gathered in the capital city and participated in a gathering at the headquarters of the traffic police. So the police decided to reissue the licenses in 2020. But because of past experiences, the rules were tightened by the authorities. To gain licenses, women have to have their cars. What makes this regulation even more complicated is the fact that women can only buy cars if they're over 40 years old, have permission from their spouse, are married, and have a letter of recommendation from employers of neighborhood management committees. With even more barriers to applying for something as simple as a driver's license, it seems the days of independence for women in Turkmenistan are still far away. Something else that women aren't allowed to do in a car in Turkmenistan? sitting in the front seat. Even if the passengers are all women, they must all cram into the back seat. In cases where a woman must sit in front, they need to present documents confirming their relationship with the driver. They'll only be allowed to sit there if they're the wife or daughter of the driver. The country deemed women sitting in front as a sin, a shame, and against national traditions. So it's no wonder women are having such a hard time getting their driver's licenses in the country. Another aspect that the government of Turkmenistan controls: the way women dress. It's reported that there's a government-imposed dress code for women in Turkmenistan. Women are not allowed to have Western-style attire. This includes tight-fitting clothes such as blue jeans or swimsuits, or Western-style wedding dresses. Not only that, but Islamic-inspired hijabs are also banned by the government. That's right, although the nation is a large Muslim-majority country, it prefers traditional Turkic clothes and costumes. The only dress code for women is the ones that go in line with the Turkmenistan tradition. That is, a hand-embroidered, ankle-length, long-sleeve dress of brightly colored fabric of traditional patterns. Instead of the hijabs, women must wear a tubateka decorated with colored threads and often with a knotted headscarf. Universities and schools have their own color and cloth textures for dresses. They must get their fabric on a centralized basis and distribute it to their students afterward. Police have been sent all over the country to inspect women and whether or not they wear the appropriate attire. You would think that red light districts would be non-existent in Turkmenistan, but the oldest profession does exist in the country. Due to rising poverty in the country, it's now common for daughters to be pushed into work by their families, by their parents on the streets of Ashgabat, or the nation's capital. Parents facing economic pressures lead them to send older children to earn money to feed their younger siblings. It's said that urban centers always have individuals in certain professions, but nowadays the numbers are increasing. That's because people from rural ethnic backgrounds are now involved too. People can see some young individuals may be found working offering services. Some even sell their services for as low as US $1 per session. Sadly, the girls don't even keep the money they earn because everything will be sent to their younger family at home. If you're a man looking for love in Turkmenistan, then make sure you're financially prepared. That's because marriage can be costly in Turkmenistan. Men need to pay a substantial amount of dowry, or kalim, to the bride's family. Often, the bride's family will demand high prices, especially if their daughter is deemed high-priced. For example, a woman with a university education, a good job, or a valued skill will cost the groom about $10,000. The groom should also bear all the expenses of the wedding, which can be pretty hefty. One woman named Azoda wanted to marry her now husband, but her family was adamant about getting enough dowry for her. They asked for 36 sheep, 36 dresses for the bride, and $600. Her husband couldn't afford it at the time, so they had no other choice but to elope. This is also a common case in the Liabab area of Turkmenistan, which borders the town of Talimarjan and Uzbekistan. Many women have decided to run away with their Uzbek boyfriends to elope to avoiding paying their family dowries. Believe it or not, Turkmenistan has a gate of hell, also known as the Darvaza crater, a man-made mistake resulting in a continually burning gas crater with flames surrounding it. When a Soviet exploratory team drilled for natural gas in Turkmenistan about 50 years ago, they set off a chain reaction that created the Darvaza gas crater. The chain reaction resulted in a giant fiery hole that eventually became the country's most visited site. The place is also called the Gates of Hell and the Shining of Karakum. The fiery phenomenon is caused by methane-fueled flames along the cratered floor and walls. Located in the Karakum Desert, the crater creates a sight to behold, especially at night. It's so popular among tourists that an encampment is not established near the site. There are 3 permanent camps where you can rent yurts or tents, get meals, and motorized transportation to the crater rim. According to scientists, the crater shouldn't have lasted as long. The president even asked scientists to find ways to extinguish the flames and close the site to tourism. It's because the crater has caused significant loss of valuable natural resources, environmental damage, and health concerns, especially to surrounding areas. Although this seems like a responsible move by the government, local residents may not be in agreement. They believe that extinguishing the crater will also dampen the tourism aspect to Turkmenistan. In the end, their livelihood will take a hit and they'll be out of work. Right now, the government is still working out the best way to extinguish the Gate of Hell. So if you're interested in seeing it before it's gone, you might want to schedule your visit sooner rather than later. If some religions have holy scriptures, Turkmenistan also had a book that had a similar standing. It's called the Book of Rama. The book was created by the late president Niyazov and is treated as a spiritual guide for the soul for the citizens. The book features history, moral ideas, religious norms, and fairy tales. Created in 2001, the book is mandatory for high school and university students. According to the Rama scripture, here's what it will bring to the reader. It's a ticket to heaven, which means anyone who reads it will become smart and go straight to heaven. It will familiarize you with your origin. It will make you seem smart. It's a cosmic portal and is the center of the universe. Not only is the book mandatory for schools and universities, but new government employees must also be tested on their knowledge of the Rama. Rama is also mandatory knowledge to pass your driver's test. There's even a Rama memorial with a huge statue in the nation's capital. Former President Niyazov passed away in 2006, and the new president decided to retire the book and remove it from the requirement to pass exams. On the other hand, the new president also has his own sets of publications on health, medicinal plants, economics, and other subjects. So even if Rama is no more, it seems that every new figure of authority always has their own version after coming into power in Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan might be an interesting place, but there's a sense of eeriness when you come to the country. It's one of the hardest countries to visit, and getting a visa is challenging. It's also one of the least visited countries, probably because they're already prospering from their gas production, so no marketing is needed. People are also not allowed to leave the capital city unless they're accompanied by an authorized guide. Some tourists have reported arriving in the capital and found it almost empty. The city and their services are extremely controlled and meticulously regulated. The internet is also heavily restricted and controlled. That's because almost everything that's considered as a risk of a leak and can have a negative impact in Turkmenistan is blocked from the country. In fact, Turkmenistan is in the top 10 of the most censored countries in the world. Tourists are also not allowed to take pictures around certain areas, such as museums, presidential palaces, and other monuments. Some even reported being approached by policemen and asked to delete their pictures or hand in their phones. So if you ever find yourself in Turkmenistan, always get familiar with their rules and avoid making a scene. Turkmenistan's extensive restrictions paint a unique picture of life in this Central Asian country. Although it holds a fascinating history and rich cultural traditions, the realities faced by citizens, women, and tourists reveal a government that prioritizes control over individual freedom.